Hello and welcome to the CFMU 93.3 FM radio show and podcast, The Coolest Journey, where my guests and I explore the intersections of health and environment through reflections, tips, and tools for everyday living so we can all improve our lives. I'm your host, Hélène Caron. In this podcast, I've talked to a few extreme athletes regarding their journey in cold, icy waters in the past, like my good friend Gabriela Herrero in Lake Ontario, Tom Heyerdahl in the Ottawa area, and Orion Miller, Montreal's ice surfer. Well, today I am talking to a very special swimmer, one that I'm always thrilled to swim and interact with in Vancouver waters, Jessi Harewicz. First, she swims in the cold. She completed her first ice mile on December 8th, 2020 in Alice Lake near Squamish, and a second ice mile in November 2021 at Alta Lake in Whistler. She took on ice miles as mental and physical preparation for her North Channel crossing. So yes, that means second, she swims really, really long distances. This North Channel crossing is between Ireland and Scotland, and it's about 35 kilometers. It's considered to be one of the toughest open water swims in the world due to currents, water temps, and pretty much every swimmer's nemesis, jellyfish. She is one of Canada's most accomplished long-distance open water swimmers, as the third Canadian to complete the Triple Crown of open water swimming, which is the English Channel, Catalina, and the 20 bridges in Manhattan. And she made history as the first Canadian to swim the North Channel from Ireland to Scotland. She's also crossed the Salish Sea from Nanaimo to Kitsilano Beach. If you live in the Vancouver area, you know how that seems so far. So incredible. Now, Jessi is setting her sights on something even closer to home, a non-stop, unassisted 106-kilometer swim the full length of Okanagan Lake from Vernon all the way to the north to Penticton to the south, expected to take between 48 and 52 hours. No wetsuit, no sleep stops, just Jessi and the water and her crew. She's going to have and she's going to talk about this, a boat with her, actually boats with her. So Jessi is swimming to raise funds for youth mental health at CMHA, supporting 3 new foundry locations across the Okanagan. And she's going to be talking about this. We'll be talking about why she swims, why this lake crossing, and a few logistical aspects as well. One thing's for sure, we'll be talking about stepping out of the comfort zone and how to adapt to dire situations. Situations plural, because I'm sure there's going to be many things during this journey. Now, one thing we all want to know as well is how is she going to deal with Ogopogo, that elusive, mystical creature of Lake Okanagan. Welcome, Jessi.
Hi.
How are you today? How are you feeling?
Good. Busy.
Yes, we are a few days before your big swim. And talk to us a little bit here about maybe just a tiny little bit about the logistic aspects. Like, how do you decide on your start date, and then when the time comes, what makes you decide if it's a go or no go, or do you push the date back and forth?
Yeah, so there's lots of, this is pretty much my 10th year, 9 years since I swam the English Channel, and about 8 years, I'm going to say about 8 years since I've been doing pretty well logistically planned swims. I did do a Georgia Strait about 10 years ago, but we didn't really, that was our first try, and we had at least logistics down, but not necessarily the documentation. So this one, we are fully supporting ourselves. I get very involved and kind of almost to a detriment, almost micromanage all the logistics because I do help run open water races in the summertime, and I do work in aquatics in Vancouver. So I usually have my hand in everything from the safety plan to everything. It's always the swimmer's responsibility to get their own boats and stuff, but in this one we also have to get our own observers. We're getting this ratified through the Marathon Swimming Federation, as are almost all my swims in British Columbia, as they are a good international organization that holds pretty much I guess good accreditation around the the world. And they, most importantly, they publish all the documentation, so there's no hiding, no deception within the logistics or the proof of concept and proof of swim. So
And
yeah, there's a lot.
if I may just interrupt here, so basically what you're doing this swim, it's not just, ooh, I'm gonna go out on a whim and do this weekend swim. This is really well thought out, planned, and you're looking for ratification through various bodies, basically.
Well, yeah, the through the Marathon Swimming Federation is the main organization that I use. Uh, most places that have frequently swim channels will have their own independent organizations, but I subscribe to the Marathon Swimming Federation because they enforce English Channel rules with no wetsuits and no touching around the world. It's a great database. You can get inspired and look at amazing swims from around the world, from Argentina all the way to Russia to all over the world. It's amazing. There is no limitations. If anything, you should really listen to their podcast because it's very inspiring. If you are ever seriously wanting to do some interesting exploration, and also it shares it. The most important part about it is it ends up sharing information. The more you give them, the more they can publish, and the more that they can share. You can share your experiences and your ups and downs with planning processes. Most importantly, it's ratification, proof of the actual swim. But yeah, so we have a lot going on right now. In terms of the actual start times, we made a decision to do it early July based on generally weather. The lake does warm up this time of year. It's we were originally thinking the end of July, but it's going to be almost be too warm for me this already. I think it's going to be around 20-degree water, which I've been training mostly in this year. So I actually have taken a bit of a I've been staying away from colder water this year. I've been training out at Sasamat and Bunsen, so that water's been about 18 for almost 6-7 weeks right now. Like in Vancouver and a lot of the West Coast, the temperature tends to increase very fast. Only a few weeks before that, I think the Sasamat was like 9 degrees, and even because I was not acclimated. I did not do a lot of winter swimming this year. I was focusing more on the actual pool training, getting my distances in, because you have to adapt your training every year. As much as I would love to stand in cold water and get up with you guys at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's just not practical when I work until 10:30 at night. So yeah, so that was like part of the big preparation, and knowing that the water temperature would be it. In terms of, I do have people that I consult, and I had to get a boat together, and my pilots, navigators, generally they call them pilots, but people that are also in hands with planning. And there's no tides on this lake, but definitely there is
There's definitely currents.
there's current
Yeah.
and it's weather patterns. Unfortunately, right now it's looking like there's been a lot of strong wind, and it's not something I'm exactly keen for. But in terms of your other question about when we go, we are, because this is a very long swim. It has been done before. This distance has been done before with the similar rules. I think mine would be 8th or 9th longest swim. If you're going to look at the longest swims database, long swim database, which is run by Marathon Swimming Federation, that I subscribe to that list. Yeah, I mean, it's just another, it's a list. You don't have to subscribe to lists, but it's what I look at. And they do correlate stuff with back east and Ontario. That's why currently the longest swim, I think, is like a double Lake Ontario, which would be considered a segmented swim. So you get out of the water, get back in. But Vicky Keith and then has done a lot of those, and there's a few other people that have done double Lake Ontario's. So it's that's kind of what we're looking at when we're saying Canada's longest swim. For me, I just want to swim along. I just want to get the lake. I want to get lake done. It has been done before with wetsuits and other things, but I just really want to get it done nonstop, unassisted. Just get it done. We are looking to we have planned the swim so that I do swim 3 nights in a row, and 2 days. So we're looking, because usually water is generally calmer at night. It can not happen that way. If you go down to Catalina, they always start their swims at night because California coast, generally the wind is lower. But when I went and swam Monterey Bay, I got wind at night, so you can get wind at night, but generally we want to have less sun on the body, and we're trying to do so a lot of swims will strategically start at, not a lot, but some will strategically start in the evening to get some of that night swimming in right off the bat. I'm okay with night swimming. I think it's great. It takes a bit of time to settle, but I find it's a lot less. The hardest part for me is in the afternoons when the winds pick up and the sun's really bright in your eyes, even with good goggles, tinted goggles. It can be melting your your zinc oxide off your body, and
Yeah.
it can be tough. It can be tough. I've done it many times before. I get quite sleepy in the afternoons, not necessarily at night, but in the afternoons when it gets a bit hot. But yeah, so right now we're hoping to start Friday morning at 1 a.m. We will confirm today. Usually we were looking at 2 to 3 days ahead for the weather. And if there's very big, very bad gusts of wind, we could potentially delay by one full day. We are hoping that we will luck out. We will, I have a very good team of pilots and a great little sailboat. Sometimes sailboats, people have done these things on sailboats and on power boats. We have opted for a sailboat because I have mostly navigators. My navigators are, and my people, including Gunnar Johnson, who's done many of my swims, has been on the Nanaimo swim, that the longest, one of the longest Salish Sea unassisted swims. That we know of that's recorded. We're talking about recorded, documented. I don't really care about records. I'm here to just swim and to document and to share knowledge. That is
Right.
primarily why I do this, to share knowledge and share that it can be done safely. We don't have we're not doing a multiple boats. We're trying to do one boat. We have a Zodiac in tow, and we have a kayak in tow, and we have backup support. Very generously, the Kelowna Yacht Club is our on-call support. Have generously given us this boat for very, good price, and are very supportive of this. And that's probably also through my many years of being around boaters and sailors and understanding that you need to use everybody. You need to use divers, sailors, fishermen. You need to use all the knowledge that we can, so that, because we are like the ants, we are the smallest parts of the ocean, or the lakes. The bigger you get, the more control you tend to have over certain things in the water. So we need to use all of the resources, and that's what makes this successful and safe.
So
We
that's a
don't, yeah.
lot. That's a lot of preparation, attention to details, making sure you're controlling the variables that are within your control, but then there's all sorts of other the variables that you do not control, like the weather, the wind, whatever happens in the water. And now lately, there's also been the forest fire smoke as well. There's a huge fire around the Hope area, and we were in Osoyoos last weekend. And on Saturday was fine. Sunday morning, I opened the door of the little motel where we were staying, and poof, I had the smell of that forest fire in my face. So, is that another one of your consideration, forest fire smoke, or
Yeah.
how do you take that into consideration?
We have like a 15-page safety plan, including lists, though. That includes lists, gear lists, and things. So I'm probably closer to 9-page safety plan that talks about lightning, thunder, under our weather variables. And there's always a process to evaluating when things come up, because we only have so much knowledge. I only have so much knowledge as a swimmer and as somebody who organizes races. Our boaters have their own knowledge as well. We are going to notify local authorities of what we're doing as well. But in terms of forest fire smoke, there is a air quality index that you can look up online. That is usually what generally most municipalities use across at least our province, and it might be federal. I'm not quite sure. Personally, I don't have any asthma problems. I have swam through smoke a little bit, or there's been smoke warnings in BC, in Vancouver area. I live near the water. I live in Kitsilano. And and where I do not have any respiratory issues, but the most important part is that it's not just about me, it's about your team. If anybody feels they are uncomfortable or unwilling to proceed or believe that we are putting somebody on the boat or myself, but more importantly on the boat in risk, then we do have to have conversations and safety steps through everything, and make sure that people are all in agreement. We do have two different, we do have 8 people on the boat and we have multiple roles. So, and because we do actually also even have a motorhome following us, the lake is about 4 kilometers at its widest. We're very lucky to have a motorhome. My mother and her husband are following us. So if somebody does want to take a break, they are allowed to leave the boat. The swimmer stays in the water. If it does not compromise the swimmer, we have a Zodiac to take people to shore, and a whole list of docking points, and the generosity of the community and awareness of the community has really helped all this out. Because federal water is federal, it is public access. You cannot restrict access, especially in an emergency situation. That even goes more out the window. So we do have the ability to adapt. I guess that's the most important thing I'm saying is we have the ability to adapt if someone is not feeling comfortable with the smoke or needs rest, where they're getting off the boat and they're coming back later. But ideally, we are keeping most of this crew is staying at present, because we do have shift rotations with the different roles, so that there's always at least 2 eyes on the swimmer at all times. But that's a longer convoluted answer to about smoke and lightning, thunder, extreme winds. Generally, if it goes over 20 knots, we probably shouldn't be in the water. But if it's only for half an hour to an hour and it does not compromise the safety of the swimmer and or the crew, then we can proceed. I won't push through wind. It's not worth it. You just swim in one spot until it. And that's the good thing about Lake Okanagan. It's not super consistent. It's like most of the Salish Sea and the British Columbia, area, down to Seattle. It's very variable. It's great conditions for all these different sports, but the wind picks up and dies down pretty fast, which can be annoying for sailors at least.
It's a good thing for us if we're swimming, right? So that means that you might get a break, you might get a push as well if the wind is in your back. In terms of the wind, waves, there's a few other things. Do you use an app like Windy, or do you use the Canadian government websites, or what do you?
They use multiple. Because I've also crewed on a Georgia Street Swim as well, and been around again. I seem to really attract these long distance sailors that really like to, especially a lot of nerdy guys, mostly men that I know so far, that love figuring out all the little bits and pieces. And I've had recorded conversations because I have no freaking idea what they're talking about. And I listen back to them years later going, okay, I understand a little bit more now, but they're like southwest, northwest winds, knots, it goes on and on and on. So they do use a lot of the apps, but what I've really learned, and there's a book that I think that summarizes all this. I don't have it anymore. I gave it to somebody, but it was by Government of Canada, which is basically the more you know, the less you know. You have all these apps. They sometimes contradict each other slightly if you go down to little details. And you have to trust what you are also, because it might say something's happening and you don't feel it where you are. We also have to remember that even the wind the wind reading at the top of the mast is different than right at the bottom of the water. I've talked to Marathon Swimming Federation. Those are getting into nitpicky stuff. If it's, 3 knots of wind up there and on the water surface, it might only be 1. That's just an example. I don't know this stuff. This is stuff I've just learned over the years, but it can be a bit of a difference, but we're taking general stuff. We do take physical water temperature every half an hour. And we do take air temperature on a regular basis, but in terms of wind forecasts, it's really up in the air. You can look at everything you want, but it's going out there and understanding the patterns of what can happen. If there's a high pressure system coming in, this is more likely to happen if it's so many hours out. That's to my understanding. I'm not an expert in this, so.
So I've got a few questions here for logistics as well. I'd like to know how many crew members you have helping you out, because really when we're looking at the bigger picture, you need some sailors, and I'm saying plural because probably not one person is going to be on the boat for, let's say, 50 to 60 hours. You need someone to help feed you and make sure that you just focused on you. Then the temperature taking, then there's taking roles, then you've got your mom and her partner are on land in that the in well in that camper. Um, how many people are in your crew?
Okay, so yeah, we've narrowed it down to 8 people. We have eight people on the boat, 2 people on land, as well as other backups via phone. It's divided. We've done our safety plan basically following Marathon Swimming Federation / English Channel rules, which is you have 3 roles. You have the pilots, navigators, which there will be 3 for most of the swim, rotating tasks of keeping the boat right next to me. And then we have 2 observers, including Marilyn Kay, who's coming all the way from Lake Ontario from Solo Swims, who's observed many and is an amazing marathon swimmer herself. And Brent Hobbs is also a marathon swimmer, he's our local knowledge guy who also has worked in the healthcare system. So he has just a few contacts and works as a paramedic and nurse. We
And
have
didn't
2
Brent,
experienced people. What?
yeah, didn't Brent try and cross the lake himself, or isn't he a swimmer, Brent Hobbs?
Oh no, yeah, no, I said he's married. Yeah, he's done English Channel. He's
Okay.
crewed for
Oh,
many channel swims. Yeah, I don't know if he's attempted, I don't think he's attempted it himself. But I do know he's been on many English Channel swims up until even like the last Canadian we had across, Erin Bowers got across last year, I think, and she was there. And yeah, he's very busy, very committed person to the sport. Um, yeah, I used to live in Vancouver many, many years ago. Anyways, he's on board. So him and Marilyn Kay, which are both not, they're both objective people that are taking all the notes. And yeah, I got the cream of the crop for this one.
yeah, and you're going to be
Yeah,
well
Marilyn.
supported. Yeah, you've got your
Yeah,
observers, you've got your
and then I
support.
have my 3. Then I have my 3 feeders, which is my father, who's been on almost every single solitary one of my swims, and then Teresa Seibel, who's an amazing swimmer herself, just completed an English Channel relay, runs her own coaching groups and camps and all these
Mhm.
other amazing things. And
Yeah,
she's on many.
she
She's been on
teaches
this
with
many.
the total immersion method,
Yeah,
and
and
I've done a camp with her in Penticton, and it's if anyone is listening and they're an adult and they've never really done age groupers and they want to learn how to swim, then I highly recommend total immersion method. And if they're in BC, then check out Teresa and her group.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, she's done some amazing stuff. We don't
And
agree on everything, but
yeah,
she's a really good,
we're
really good coach
we're
person.
all our own people,
Yeah,
but
she's not my coach, but
Teresa's supposed to come on the podcast, so she told me she would.
yeah.
So this is a special.
She's not my coach, but she's a really good resource for people, and really knows and crewed for some of my very long swims, most importantly. And then we also have Emily Van Gulik, who's amazing, who recently he went to Arizona with me for SCAR, which was like 60 something kilometers in 4 days, and kayaked her ass off, even though she didn't even it doesn't really kayak a lot, but she knows I'm slow. So we got there and it was amazing and got really good at feeding. And Emily was on my Lake Ontario swim in Manhattan. Teresa's been on the 30-hour Nanaimo, the North Channel. I mean, I snuck in a Monterey Bay in there a couple of years ago too, but nobody was on. My dad was just on that one. That was, we always have to adapt. That was probably one of my hardest swims, actually. Monterey Bay was pretty horrible. It was probably definitely harder than my North Channel. But
Actually, talking about this, Jessi. So you've got some, of course, when we do events like this, we all know this. We have some better events, some don't go as well, and then some are just spectacular. Why do you swim? First of all, why do you swim?
yeah, that's you get the idea in the beginning. You get more inspired, and it was very philosophical in the beginning. I knew exactly why, and then over the years, you go in and out of why you keep coming back for more suffering and torture. I still think it took years to get to where I just was comfortable with it. My father will keep reminding me that I was always a mess the first couple of years, and I think I stick with it. Why do I? Well, it's more about why do I think it. The question now is more why do I stick with it? I swam in the beginning because it gave me a sense of purpose. It was something interesting. It was challenging. It was. I have a hip impingement, so it was able. I was able to cycle long distances or run long distances. So it gave me the ability to feel free in a very weird setting because you feel very trapped in the water a lot. But when you do know, if you can't see yourself moving but you see what you've covered at the end, it gives you that, like, that really sense of wow, like I didn't feel like I was moving most of that time, but I guess I swam at all because it's been documented. And it gives you that, like, I look out in the beaches every year, and all the beaches and the Georgia Strait, and you're kind of like, well, I've swam most of that, so, and look at how Sound, and you're like, well, I've done those routes, so it's you kind of do it for that sense of, yeah, some sense of accomplishment. And but it's really for me giving the sense of the adventure. Training with my dad, he's very committed and is now retired, but has been amazingly committed to Sassamat twice a week. Is not my coach, but is just my right hand person and does learns as much as he can. So I think it started out in the beginning as something that we did together, and it's something we've continued for 10 years now. And I think that was originally what really, like, when we thought, like, could we do this and go into swim track about over 10 years ago, and talking to Rebecca Lewis, who's, she's swam English Channel many times, but she was around my age. She now has kids and stuff, but she kayaked with her dad. Her dad go out and kayaked with her, and we had just got this idea of like, well, if we could do this together, then maybe, and it just kind of, and the amount of interesting swims we've had up Howe Sound, training swims. I'm very lucky. A lot of people do not have this. So why I swim is many reasons. About the adventure. It's about the challenge, the relentlessness every winter, trying to get in the pool. I don't try, I get in the pool, but dealing with the fact that I have to work on my technique, and there's tears, there's frustrations, fixing things. I'm not a college level swimmer.
Right, but
So
there's also joy. There's also joy. There's
yeah,
elation, peace and
yeah,
centeredness, right?
it just takes time. I don't sugarcoat it, because it takes time, and it takes a lot of discipline to keep coming back. But at the end of the day, especially when I'm in my peak training and I start feeling more energetic, yeah, I still have weeks where you're tired. You have those weeks where it's just more energetic. It's hard this year because I had to swim in a lap pool pretty much Sassamat most of the time. But the fact that I can stop by the side of the road to a lake, evaluate a safety, get in the lake, do a few laps of a lake. That is why I swim. It gives you, it extends even the temperature range. It extends your season. It gives you a whole other, it's like the Little Mermaid. It's a whole other world of exploration. And I mean, lakes, like, yeah, Ogo Pogo, but the lake, like, come on. And the lakes are like, I mean, I don't really get scared in the ocean either. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I think that's why I like colder water, because you can't see much. I think in crystal blue water, I would definitely be a lot more scared. There's some amazing lakes in BC where there's crystal blue water, which obviously you're not, because there's just fish. Like Pavilion Lake and Crown Lake, amazing, beautiful little lakes. Unfortunately, forest fire areas. But it really, really gives you a sense of freedom that if you know how to evaluate local knowledge for safety, you can go and swim, and you don't have to. There's not a lot, and if you have a temperature range, the safety, it gets so much easier. But this is over 10 years,
Right, right.
of knowledge,
Yeah. And
of
I know what you
asking
mean though.
questions.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It took me about I would say 3 years to get comfortable at Kits where, and we started to swim at night or early morning in the dark. And that also improved my comfort level in the water, which is something that you've been doing for a long, long time. But coming back to Ogopogo, seriously, what are you gonna do when you're gonna see him? If you see him, are you gonna ask for his autograph?
It's the wind monster that I'm more
Take
worried about,
take
to be
take
honest.
take a selfie with Uncle Pogo?
It's the wind monster. If he controls the wind, then that's the one I'm scared about.
Oh,
No, this is really more a test of fatigue. Once we get through Kelowna, that's really where my demons are gonna and even getting to Kelowna can be difficult because what people have said in other podcasts, which I really do resonate with some of the longer distance swimmers, is sometimes or like a two-way. Catalina's woman said, "Oh, I thought the turnaround would be the hardest point," and then it was like, no, it was the turnaround was the best point. It was the first half that was the hard part, and I've gone over in my head many times when is the hard part going to be, and I know that there's going to be multiple hard parts. And if you're worried about if the Ogopogo is your demon, then go for it. Mine is going to be the fatigue and the weather, the ups and downs, and just I mean, again, there's been really bad wind forecasts, so I gotta
yeah.
after I get off this call, I'm gonna go and talk to my navigators and see where we're at,
Yeah, making your
because
call
it's
basically. Yeah.
yeah, because the biggest demons and scariness is it's really not finishing. You will hear this from other swimmers as well. Again, I'm not super inspirational. I'm very much acknowledging that what I've done is not, it's not new. I what I with the care and detail that I do maybe may or may not been, I'm going to probably share my safety plan after this, and hopefully get it a bit more published so people can see how much detail goes into it, because I'm very proud of this one because of all the safety planning stuff that I've done in the past. I don't
And
have a degree in it, so
may I say something here? I swam the Around the Bay race last summer, and this is Around the Bay in Vancouver. This is a swimming race. 10K. So for the solo swimmers, that means it's marathon distance. Open water swim 10K is marathon distance. You're the one who put the safety plan together for this Around the Bay swim, and it is one of the best run swim I've ever done. We had, I mean, maybe it was an overkill. I don't know. The VPD was there. We had the North Shore Rescue there. So we had two motorboats. You were there on another motorboat. Each swimmer had their own kayaker. There were teams doing it. There were solo swimmers. There were enough people in the water that you didn't really feel alone either. And the conditions were not bad. The first year, I remember the conditions were pretty horrific. The second year, the conditions were better. The last year was pretty good, I guess. It's just too bad that we're skipping this year, and then hopefully next year, you and your super safety plan are going to be back in there. If someone is interested in doing this, I highly recommend get in touch with Vausa and put some pressure on knowing some dates, because we all want to sign up for this race. And Jessi, you've done such a great job with safety plans. I'm sure that the one that you've prepared for Lake Okanagan is super detailed, and if you do share it, do let me know, and I can always put a link in the notes of the show.
yeah. And also I do want to acknowledge though, Erin, my co-director for that one, she does a lot of the work as well. She actually came up originally with the triangle. I came up with all these other routes, and it's, you have to remember that it's always a team of people. With my safety plan for Lake Okanagan, it's dictated, again, half of it is written by navigators, so I do not take all the credit, especially for Around the Bay. Erin puts in a lot of work with permits, and she does all the registration. So and she's also attempting more swims herself, and swam a swim with you up at Kalamaka Lake last year. So she put a lot of her heart and soul. And again, she originally actually did come up with the triangle route, which I just fine tuned and refined it all, and did all the GPS and everything. So
Yeah.
I do use some of my personal contacts sometimes to try and overlap with some of it. So it takes a community to do it. And again, I really want to give that credit to Erin, because she's done some amazing work with it, and it takes a team. It really takes a
It,
really solid team.
yeah, it was Erin, you, and even the Valsa crew, and a lot of volunteers were there as well that I remember for the race. But
Yeah, we
basically,
have to.
whether
Yeah,
it's an organized event like this from Valsa, or it's your own organized event like the Okanagan Lake Crossing, there's a lot of moving parts, and it does involve a team. Sometimes it's easier when you're under the umbrella of an organization like Vausa, but when you're doing your own, then you get to pick your own elite members like you did.
But I got lucky though. And with Bowser, there's some positives. There's always a positive and negative using organization versus not. And there are some channel swims around the world where you can do it more in a group. Like there's like more of a race, or you can do like solo attempts. I think there's like these 15K, 20Ks now around the world
Yes.
with different ones. And they're just all very expensive. The one thing we love about
Mm.
Around the Bay is it's more affordable, but more expensive for the organization at the end of the day. But these are all just very pricey. We do not have, most of us do not have retirement plans. We spend a lot of money. I'm very fortunate to have a very supportive family behind all this. Both my mother and her husband and my father and his partner, very supportive. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you're trying to constantly manage. And I do, yes, this one I got to pick, but I had to work on it. This has really evolved because we want to remember that we are dominantly we're trying to bring, and part of the reason why I'm getting a lot of press on this one is because of the Canadian Mental Health Association and the One Sky. It's also in conjunction with One Sky, which is running the Foundry location. It's Foundries are these youth centers for families, support for mental health, which we're swimming basically through the communities down there, and having them as the support, finding a really good support network to do the charity aspect and the publicity, because I can't afford to pay for press.
Right, right.
I work a city job. I'm constantly paying off my credit card bills, trying to
Yeah.
make sure
It,
everybody's
it
being compensated correctly.
it's
So
a passion. When we have a passion, oh, pretty much all our money goes into there. But you're using this lake crossing as a means to raise funds for CMHA in that area. Now, for the I'm Foundry, I'm not saying it right, Foundry. Uh, your goal, I believe, was to raise $10,000. Is that correct?
yes, that was our goal, which we're very lucky that we are almost, I think
Almost
we're almost
there.
80%, 80% there now. Yeah. We've
Oh,
had some amazing support. The Oddfellows, Vancouver, QP, both of my union from my job, and BCQP as well have also donated 1,000 each, which has been amazing support. So yeah, it's really come together. This is definitely my most successful campaign so far. We also raised money for the the Life Saving Society, and we did a campaign for Lake Ontario a few years ago, and we also did a campaign for the Squamish Search and Rescue last year. But this one's definitely more successful due to the efforts of the base being the Kelowna Canadian Mental Health Association. But then there's also the Vernon Canadian Mental Health Association, and then the Foundry. That's also it's One Sky is another, is the third. It's not just Canadian Mental Health, but it's all for these Foundry run locations, which are mental health facilities for youth in Lake Okanagan. So we're hoping, I'd like to get that. Hopefully, as the swim progresses, we'll maybe hopefully get to much more than $10,000. So
well,
hopefully, Helen, I know you will post the link for the direct
absolutely.
donation.
The direct donation, I'll have the link in the show notes, and of course I'll put it on my Facebook and Instagram pages, so that people can always refer to that. One last question for you, Jessi. If you can answer that in 30 seconds, I'm curious to know, what are you going to drink and eat in order to be able to stay awake and functioning the whole time?
So we have, yeah, I've actually been really focused on getting my crew their food. For my own stuff, I do use a carbohydrate mix. They're not sponsoring me at all, but Morton is a really good carbohydrate, fructose and glucose balance mix. But I do also am eating solid foods. I've been making my own oatmeal muffins that I've been eating, and I'll be having some basic carbohydrates like pasta. It's going to be a long couple days, and psychologically, I've really found that if I've eaten for many years solid foods in the water, it's much better for me to have bits of solid food. So combinations of mashed potatoes, pasta with different sauces. I'm going to get some pesto in there. I've tried that in the water. That's really yummy. Um, mashed potatoes, pasta. I'm going to try probably some sweet potatoes as well. I tried that. That's pretty good. Some natural sugars, some date paste, and this carbohydrate mix, and my own little yummy mini muffins, and even fresh fruit. A lot of the stuff, it keeps you going, and caffeine will be used. I have had times where I've used not enough caffeine, and sometimes when I've used too much caffeine. But it's the energy levels are going to be like this. It's going to be up and down. Yeah, I get very drowsy. I will get very drowsy and very sleepy at points, but you fight through them and they will come to do. But I don't. I mean, I think on my 30-hour, I think I stayed up for 45 hours in total. And it's this one. I'm lucky enough that I do have actually Prestige Hotels was sponsoring us for the swim, so I'm able to rest up until probably an hour or two before we leave, because the location of where we're starting is not that far. So it could take up to 60, and I think there was a correction. I think 60 hours is what we're thinking might be the max. 60. Okay. Yeah, I think someone published 52 for some reason, but it was 48 to 60. But yeah, I'll get there when I get there. We got everybody else gets shifts. Everybody on the boat, they rotate their shifts. I just get there when I get there. So,
well, your swim is coming up really shortly, so I'm going to let you go and get some rest and finish preparing some of the things.
I actually gotta go.
Yeah. Well, I want to say a huge thank you to you for taking the time out of your extremely busy pre-swim schedule to chat with me today. I want to remind our listeners that this is the Coolest Journey podcast and radio show with me, Hélène Caron, as your host. If you enjoyed the show, please support the show by subscribing to the Coolest Journey newsletter via the website, thecoolestjourney.com. But you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Listen live on radio at cfmu.ca. The show is live. It's every Friday from 12:30 to 1. That's Eastern time, because CFMU is in Hamilton, Ontario. And that is basically 9:30 to 10 a.m. Vancouver Pacific time. So if you want to listen live, you can do that on cfmu.ca. And you can also connect with me on Facebook and Instagram through The Coolest Journey. Jessi, I wish you all the best in your swim, and most of all, that all the logistics fall in place for you. May the wind, the waves, and the current be at your back.
Thank you. Have a good day, you guys.
Happy Friday, everyone, and wishing you all health, energy, and the coolest journey of your life. Bye, everyone.